Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the last video of CoreUI Module. We're going to implement two remaining components. The first one, which is the skeleton loader, and the second one is the theme switch that's going to allow the user to switch the dark theme on and off. And let's start with the skeleton loader. Create a new user control. Let's call it skeleton. I would like to start from the code behind. Let's define the first dependency, which is the color start for the animation, and for the middle color and the end color. Let's not hard code the animation duration. Let's set a border radius for this container. Let's switch to the skeleton design. Instead of grid, let's use here border. Let's set the corner radius from the dependency property and snaps to device pixels true. And for the cache mode, for performance, let's do bitmap cache. Now let's define the background of this border using linear gradient brush. We have to define the start point. For the end point, 1 for the y-axis and 0 for the x-axis. We have to define now gradient stop from the dependency properties, color start and color middle and color end. Let's assign the offset of the first one to 0, for the second one 0.5, and for the last one 1. And let's set, for example, the name to be identified under the trigger, gradient stop. Here it should be middle, and here it should be end. Now we have to set the triggers to basically animate this particular container using storyboard. We have to set here the routed event to loaded. Whenever this component is ready, we're gonna start animating the colors. Begin storyboard, auto reverse to true, and repeat behavior to forever. Now for the animation that should be used, it's gonna be double animation, the target name, GS middle, and the target property, it's going to be offset. It's going to be from 0 to 1. And for the duration, let's set a fallback duration. Going to come back to the code behind to set the duration dynamically. Now let's switch to the code behind. We have to attach an event handler whenever this skeleton is ready. We have to find the animation. Let's come back to the skeleton design. Let's add a name. Now let's come back to the code behind. Let's try to find this particular animation. Now we can set the animation duration dynamically from the dependency property, animation duration. If you can't find this skeleton animation, we need to find it within the context of the border. Let's try to find the border, and at least we have some triggers in our border. Basically, this is the case under our view, and this triggers is of type event trigger, and we have a storyboard inside. And let's look for this particular animation inside the storyboard. Afterward, we have to do animation duration from the dependency property. Now let's see the preview. I don't think that we can see it here, but let's define a preview. Under the preview, let's create a new window. Let's call it skeleton preview. Let's define, for example, the width 300, the height, for example, 400, horizontal alignment center, vertical alignment center. Let's do the animation duration 3. Without launching the preview, you can see the animation. In case, let's run the preview. I would like to come back to the window, add the preview, add the button, skeleton preview. Let's run the preview. You can customize the duration, and we're going to implement the last one, which is the theme switch. As usual, let's define the needed dependencies. We need the automation identifier for testing purposes, and we need the state of its dark theme, and the command that's going to be responsible to switch the theme back and forth. Now, whenever this value changes its dark theme, we have to do some stuff. Therefore, let's add a handler on its dark theme changed. We need to be in the theme switch component. Basically, we have to check if the new value is different than the old value. In this case, we're going to observe the changes in real time. Therefore, I'm going to add an event that's going to be triggered every time this value changed. Event handler, nullable. It has to have a Boolean parameter that's going to hold the information of its dark or light theme. Dark theme changed. Now, if these two values are different, we have to use theme switch and to assign its dark theme, and we have to invoke this event, new value. Now let's switch back to the theme switch design. And let's define the content of this component. Now, instead of grid, we're going to use the toggle button. Can't see that it's already there, but we have just to style it to add the icons here. Let's assign a name, the automation ID from the dependency property, as well as the command and the command parameter. Now for the value of is checked from the dependency property is dark theme. And for the mode, it has to be two-way. And we have to set for this toggle button style. And let's create our own style. Let's call it SVG toggle button style. And let's create this style here. And we have to set the target toggle button. The first setter is going to be for the width. Let's do 60 as well as the height. Let's say, for example, the height 32 or 35. We need to define basically the content of this particular section. The target should be the toggle button. And we're going to set here the presentation. Now we have to define the background track represented by the border. Let's give it a name and the background should be surface. And for the corner radius, let's do, for example, 16 or something similar. I think 16 will do. Let's zoom in a little bit. Now this is the track. We have to add here the sliding thumb with the icon inside. Let's use again the border. This is a good idea actually that we have used grid. Now the border here, let's call it, for example, thumb. For the width, it has to be a little bit small, 28, for example. As you can see here, I think it's enough. For the height, let's do 28. And for the margin, let's do something like 2. Not to be flush again with the edge of the border. And for the horizontal alignment, initially it has to be left for the unchecked value. And for the background, let's do, for example, white. Now the corner radius, let's do 40. It has to be less than the other one. Now this border should be animated. Therefore, I'm going to assign a name to the transform translate. And we have to put inside the SVG icon for the thumb, using, of course, SVG-L and SVG image. Let's give it a name because it has to be accessible. Let's call it thumb icon. For the width, 20 and height 20. For the horizontal alignment and vertical alignment, it should be center. And for the source, it should be initially the white balance sunny. Of course, we have to import CoreUI image and white balance sunny. All right, we are getting somewhere. Now we have to animate it actually by using Visual State Manager. And we have to add the visual state. Let's name this particular state unchecked. Now we're going to animate it using storyboard. And the animation here, it is a double animation. Now for the target name, it is the thumb transform that we have defined here. We are interested in the x-axis, not the y-axis. Therefore, we have to do here x. Duration, let's do just 0.2, actually 200 milliseconds. The to property should be 0 and the animation duration 200 milliseconds. Now for the object SVG image, we have to add the object's animation using keyframe. Let's define the target name, which is the thumb icon, and the target property, it's going to be the source. We're going to basically change the source from this particular SVG file to another source, which is going to be set for the dark theme. And here we have to add the duration to 0. Now inside we have to add discrete object keyframe. For the key time, it's going to be 0. And the value white balance sunny, which is the initial one. Now underneath this object animation using keyframe, we have to change the background to gray using the color animation. For the target name, it's going to be the track, and the target property is going to be background. And for the target, which is 2, we're going to set it to secondary, and we have to convert basically this brush to color. Therefore, we have to create a converter. Let's call it color converter. Let's call it brush to solid converter. Now we have to check if this value is a solid color brush. In this case, we're going to return brush and color. If it's not a solid brush, we have to throw an exception by saying invalid operation exception, value must be solid color brush or something like this. Now let's use it here under the animation. Let's import converter. Now let's come back and use the converter. For the target color, it's going to be secondary light. And you have to use the color converter, which converts the secondary light brush to the color. Now we have to set the duration to 200 milliseconds. I'm going to fold this particular section of the visual state of unchecked. Now let's define the other one for checked. In this case, we're going to set the animation for the transform by using double animation. It's going to be 28 and the duration 200 milliseconds. Now for the icon that should be used, moon warning. Next, we're going to set the track background to primary, and that's all for the style of this particular theme switch. As you can see here, we have the track defined by this background, and we have a circle white background, and on top of it, this particular one, it's going to be animated once switched. Now let's implement some logic under theme switch code behind. Now whenever is dark theme changed, we have to check if the toggle button is not null to set the content for testing purposes to indicate whether it's checked or not, or we are under light theme or dark theme. Therefore, we have to use switcher and the part toggle. If it's not null, we have to attach the automation properties help text. We have to pass here theme switch, and for the second argument, in dark theme, going to assign the string resource. It's not hard code this value. Let's use string resource, and let's do label switch to light theme. Otherwise, it should be label switch to dark theme. Now we have to override the method that's going to allow us to apply the template style by doing public override void on apply template. We have to call first of all base and on apply template. Whenever this component is ready and it's not null basically, which is the part toggle button, we're going to set the content of the help text according to the value of switch or not switch. I think that's pretty much it for the implementation of theme switch. Now let's create a preview for this. And in this preview, we're going to see how to use the theme switcher that we have implemented under the CoreUI. I would like to come back to the CoreUI preview view model and create another state is dark theme. Let's say, for example, true by default. First of all, let's try to set the dark theme using theme switcher and apply light theme. It's going to be the opposite. And here is dark theme equal false. Else, here instead we have to apply the dark theme, and here it should be true. All right. We have to assign to this background in order to have the dynamic background, material design background. And let's use the theme switch. Now for the dark theme, it's going to be is dark theme from the context and the command from the context of which is the view model. Now let's come back to the code behind, and you have to set the data context. Now let's try to add this particular preview. Add a button, and hopefully it's going to be the last section of CoreUI. Click on theme preview. All right, it doesn't. Okay, something is. I think something is wrong here. Let's go back to the theme switch preview. In the view model, we have set this to true. And whenever this view model is ready, we have to trigger the event. We have to trigger this command switch theme. Therefore, let's assign here the context. And we have to do whenever this is loaded, let's generate this method. And here we have to call view model switch theme command and execute and pass null as an argument. It should fix the problem because we have set true to is dark theme. If we have set false to is dark theme, we don't need actually to do this. This is just optional and to keep things consistent. It's consistent, all right? It solved the previous problem. Now, if we change, for example, from this to this, you can see the background change by using dynamic color, not static color, all right? Keep that in mind. And here it's the default background color under this section, this particular color. If you want to keep it consistent again, let's go to the main window. And I think here we have to do background dynamic color. As you can see here, changed in real time. And we have the same background from the theme of our application, which is good. And that's going to wrap up our CoreUI module. For the next video, we're going to implement the first feature, which is the product feature. We're going to proceed with the same approach, defining the domain layer, data layer, testing the data layer, and define the presentation layer, and testing the view models, and so on for the rest of the features. I hope I was helpful, and I hope you have learned something new. See you in the next video, and happy coding!